Everybody, welcome. You are here at the 72nd SongBike Guitar Q&A live stream for the 72nd time. My name's Jonathan. What's your name? Thank you for being here, everybody. My favorite part of the show is your questions. So get those questions ready. When you put a question in the chat, put a few question marks in advance so I know your question is aimed at me. Welcome, everybody. Thank you to Beginner Guitar Lessons for being here. Here's our moderator at the moment and for the entire show. My spouse, Music Fan 1004, is also a moderator. I bet she's out there too. And hi to my mom, who is often watching as well. A few hellos. John, joining us from Bangkok. I know that's not your hometown. So John, thank you for checking in from Bangkok. What time is it there in Bangkok? William Collier, thank you for being here. William Sweet, thank you for being here. Scott Rhodes, thank you for being here. Got a poll up and running already, so don't be shy, jump in the poll. The question is, how do you cure stage fright? This is something I talk about with my students quite a bit when they play for me in our lessons. And they say, man, I play it better at home. And I know everyone, I get it. Rarely, 1 out of 100 times, does a student play something and look at me and they say, "My, that's the best I've ever played it right there in front of you." It happens, but that's not the rule. So how do you overcome it? So some of the answers I proposed in the poll: do you cure stage fright just in pure practice? Just you get so good at something you're not afraid anymore? Maybe. What about psychologically? Is it all in your head? Kind of, right? So you just tell yourself it's going to be fine. Is that how you cure it? You know, internally, so to speak. Some of you might say, I have no idea. That if you knew how to cure stage fright, you'd do it. You have no idea. I get that. Maybe you're a little bit frustrated with the whole thing. And the fourth answer is other. And I would definitely like to hear from those of you who feel that there's some other approach to curing stage fright. Let us know in the chat. So everybody, in between your questions, which I'll get to in a moment, I have a bunch of things. I'm going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. That should be a segment in our show, a lesson you'll never forget. Some of the things that we're going to cover today. We're going to expand that blues scale beyond how teachers typically define the blues scale. I got my looper set up. I'm going to do a little jam session here, and I'll show you how you can do the same thing. We're going to expand the blues scale. It's going to be easy. You're going to love it. I want to talk to you a little bit about songwriting. Those of you who are songwriters, or consider that you might be a songwriter, or those of you who you play a lot of songs and you'd like to know a little bit more about how songs get written. I'm going to talk about 2-5-1 chord progressions. Physically, it's going to be very easy, but I'm going to insert a little music theory in there as well, just a little bit, so that you can take what we do and use it in the future. You know, we're going to talk about double stops with Tony. Tony, the author of this great book. You guys have seen me talk about this book before. We're going to have some fun with easy double stops, but I think you're going to get a new approach to chords and rhythm guitar, and you're going to love it. I'm excited about that. I got my new issue of Songlines magazine and a big feature. Look at that right down there. The world's 50 greatest guitarists. Holy cow. And it's not who you think. It's the world's greatest guitarists. Okay. Sadly, no Eddie Van Halen in this list. No Eric Clapton. That's okay. A lot of unfamiliar names, but people that I'm super curious about. So we're going to scratch the surface of that subject, but probably just scratch the surface for now. I haven't had time to really give it a good read. There's 50 of them. A few familiar names in there. Django Reinhardt, for example. Other things on the agenda tonight, if we have time. The Grammy nominations are out. You guys know I'm excited about this. They came out yesterday. The Grammys themselves aren't until February 2nd of next year. But just reading through the nominations, I learned a few things. So I want to share some of that with you guys. I have a student quote of the week. You guys know I teach lessons all week long. And very often something happens during the week that I share with you guys on a Saturday night. In fact, I guarantee every time we do our live stream on Saturday night, part of the content 100% comes from the one-on-one teaching I do Monday through Saturday afternoon. So I have a student quote of the week that snuck in just on the wire. A guy said something during his lesson on Friday. And I thought, ooh, that's a quote of the week right there. Who's in town? Got some interesting people coming through my neighborhood here in small town, Connecticut. Little segment we call Who's in Town? A big festival I missed. I want to tell you about that. It was not quite in my backyard, but in this day and age where social media knows everything about you and they target ads and they aim things right at your little brain because they know everything about you and what you like and love and what you're interested in, how does something like a big music festival just miss me? And no one, it doesn't show up at all in all my social media feeds. I don't know. I'll tell you about that a little bit. We have a play along song of the week. Absolutely one of my favorite songs. I can't believe we haven't done this song before now. It's so easy and it sounds so good. And a lot of people have covered this song, which if you needed proof as to the value of this song, there you go. But very cool song. It's going to be almost too easy for some of you, but that's okay. It's a great song. And we're going to talk about that. If we have time, I might play you a tune from my new book. You guys know my new book here, the SongBike Chord-Melody Songbook Vol.1. Can't wait to share some of that with you. Play a tune that maybe I haven't played for you before, give you a little taste of that. Okay, so if that doesn't fill up the next couple hours, I don't know what will. All right, you guys. So I'm jumping in the chat, and I saw, where did that go? I saw William Sweet. You mentioned something about your fingers. Where did that go? The poll is there we go, William. Okay, William says, I went to the doctor because my third finger on my right hand is locking up when I make a fist. He sent me to a specialist and they said it was from playing the guitar. What? Now I'm a believer in science. I'm a believer in professionals and in general trust in their opinion. But no, I haven't heard of your, I'm guessing that you're right-handed. I have not heard of right hand picking leading to hand issues. It's far more common that, excessive left hand playing leads to left hand issues. So, I short answer, William, no, I have not heard of that. And I'm disappointed for you. I mean, assuming, William, that you're right-handed, we don't need our fingers to be operational in the same way we need our left-hand fingers to be operational. If you're doing a lot of nice finger picking, yeah, I get it. But I mean, to hold a pick, really when it comes down to it, thumb and index finger for holding a pick. So maybe, William, if maybe the solution, the workaround is to play exclusively with a pick, maybe. I'm sorry. Hopefully it's not painful. I get that it's locking up, but hopefully it's not painful because that obviously makes it worse, So that's my suggestion, is to play with a pick. I mean, there's plenty of beautiful music that is not finger style playing, Also, your third finger on your right hand, John Prine made a whole career finger picking with his thumb and his pointer. Reverend Gary Davis, one of the most famous blues guitar players, I believe he just used his thumb and his pointer finger and did some very intricate stuff. So, you just might not need that finger, but I'm sure it's uncomfortable, if not painful. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. John says it's 5 a.m. Over there in Bangkok. So essentially you're 12 hours ahead of us. Holy cow. Well, I hope they got good coffee. I bet they do. I'm going to say a couple quick hellos here. Thunder Ace. Hello. Celeste. Hello. I see your question, Celeste. Rock Lobster. Hello. Time Surfing Alien TSA. Hello. Thunder Ace. All right. A lot of familiar names, you guys. Nice to check in with all you guys. Beginner guitar lessons mentioned that Lindsey Buckingham as well does not use a pick Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac uses his bare fingers. And your beginner guitar lessons, just saying that he uses just his thumb and index. You might be right. I just assumed he used all his fingers, but you might be right. Thumb and index, I don't know. William, it is painful. I'm sorry about that. But William Collier, who does have medical credentials, says that he feels that it is not related to the guitar and should be an easy fix. So William got a shot already. You guys do two Williams going on here. William the patient and William the doctor. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it's painful. And I would give you the same advice I would give a family or member or friend, which is keep getting those second opinions, you know. But I'm sure it's frustrating. I gotcha. Celeste, I see your question. Johnny Midnight, hello. Celeste, I see your question. William Collier, I see your question. Okay, in order. William Collier, your question was, can we review some of the seventh chords from a 12-bar blues? You got it. William's specific question is, can you review the A7, D7, and E7 chords, A, D, and E? And those chords are a great family of chords if you want to play blues, the 12-bar blues format especially. Okay, A7, I call A7 an A with a hole in the middle. You can use any combination of two fingers. My go-to is middle finger, D string, second fret, D as in Delta. Ring finger, B string, second fret, B as in Bravo. The third skinny string, the G string, is vulnerable, I call it, because it's an open string between two fretted strings, and your third skinny string should sound like that. But it's possible that one of your fingers will lean over. Whatever finger you're using on the fourth D string can lean over and mute out that third string, and that would be a crying shame, because that open third string, that open G string, is what's giving it all that bluesy flavor. That's what makes it an A7 chord. So there's your A7, D7. Now watch this. Since I'm using my middle and ring, I'm going to drop my middle and ring. They're each going to go down one string towards the floor. My middle finger is now on the third string, second fret, G string, second fret. Ring finger, first skinny E string, second fret. And I'm going to include my index finger, second string, first fret. And there's my D7 chord. So not a big jump, right? A7 to D7. Yes, there are other ways of playing A7. There's multiple ways of playing every chord you've ever heard of, up and down the neck, all over the place. I like to start with the simplest, clearest versions. And E7, it's like you take an E major chord, but you lift off your ring finger. So you have an open fourth string, also known as the D delta string. And again, that open fourth string, it's extremely possible that your middle finger on the fifth string will lean over and dampen out that fourth string. We do not want that. So how do you avoid that? Stay on the extreme tips of your fingers. Look at those dents. I've been teaching all day. I've been working on the railroad. I got those dents in my fingers. Keep your fingernails short. Push your wrist out a little bit. Push your wrist away from you a little bit. So you get a full set of ringing strings. Now, if your E7 chord sounds great and you're not pushing your wrist out, don't worry about it. If your fingernails are a little bit long, but you're still getting a good sound, don't worry about it. You know, what I'm giving you is sort of conventional advice, especially if things are not going well. Okay, A7, D7, E7. There you go. Celeste says, I was thinking of doing a little flat picking in bluegrass. Any tips? Yeah, ma'am. Number one, as you know, bluegrass guitar is a beautiful, rewarding, challenging approach to guitar playing, and it will make you a better guitar player, period. And the things that you learn from bluegrass guitar playing, you will carry with you no matter what future styles you pursue. So every moment you invest in bluegrass guitar picking will be time well spent. Hal Leonard has a great book simply called Bluegrass Guitar, black cover. You're going to ask me who wrote it. I don't know. It's in the other room, but it's a nice, boring title. You remember Bluegrass Guitar. They have a whole series: rock guitar, blues guitar, folk guitar, and they're actually good. I recommend them. If you're into blues music, get the one, Howard Leonard Publications. It's called Blues Guitar. Greg Koch, K-O-C-H. He wrote the blues guitar one. You know what? I can't stand it. My choices are to Google it, which is what I am going to do, or to get up and go to the other room, which I'm not going to do. But I'll tell you who. I want to say Fred Sokolow wrote the bluegrass guitar. So Celeste, number one, I get your hands on that book. It's not the only bluegrass book out there, but it's a good one. And come on. While I'm doing this, here's some more tips, Celeste. You get yourself a nice thick guitar pick, medium thickness or heavier. You do not want to use a little thin pick ever, in my opinion, but definitely not for bluegrass. Yeah, Fred Sokolow is how I mispronounce his last name. Sokolow, Sokolow. Bluegrass Guitar by Fred Sokolow, published by Hal Leonard Publications. Ways you can practice bluegrass playing without necessarily playing a bluegrass song. Practice a lot of scales with down up picking. Hold the pick the right way, curl up your picking hand into a loose fist. Your index finger really just acts as a barrier, and your thumb does all the work. I know it's hard to see this angle here. Okay, my thumb is doing all the work. My index is just simply curled up. Okay, that is not how every guitar player on the planet holds the guitar pick. It's how guitar teachers tell everyone how to hold it, and that's how you'll see me holding it most of the time. The bottom line is, bluegrass guitar, any kind of guitar, you do not want to hold it the way we intuitively hold it on day one, which is you pinch it between your thumb and your pointer fingertip, and it leaves a big oval shape right here. You can see it a mile away when someone holds their pick this way. In general, that'll hold you back from reaching your potential as a fast guitar picker. So it is worth it to hold it the correct way. Some of you have held it your own personal way for so many years. If you and I were doing a lesson, I would have to weigh the value of telling you to profoundly change how you hold the pick, because, hey, it's possible that you got pretty good holding it your way. But Celeste, those are some tips. Celeste, you want to make sure that you're very comfortable with all the basic regular open position chords: G, C, D, E minor, A minor, A. Get them all memorized, get them all sounding good. And just in case you haven't already mastered the boom chick strum, and even if you have, Celeste, for everyone else who has not, I'm going to grab an E major chord. For bluegrass, you can't live without the boom chick strum. Is my E major. You hit the fat string by itself. Oops, that fat string. And really punch it. Don't be shy. You want to bang that one out. And then with a lighter touch, I'm holding my pick a little looser all of a sudden. I'm brushing maybe 3 or 4 treble strings kind of lightly. Okay, you want that contrast between the punchy bass note and the somewhat lighter strum. Boom, chick, boom, chick. That's the gateway strum that bluegrass players expand upon, and you're going to find yourself doing that an awful lot as a bluegrass player, and partly because bluegrass music is a social kind of music. It's done in a group, right? That's the most common way bluegrass music is presented, as opposed to, say, beautiful, soft, quiet finger picking, right? Very often that's presented as a solo style, right? But bluegrass picking, you're going to find yourself accompanying other musicians quite a bit. How do they want to be accompanied? Very often they want that boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, kind of strum like that. And I illustrated that on the E major chord, but you want to practice that on every chord you've ever heard. Hey, Fernando, hello. V, viewer V, hello. Wingo, hello, Wingo. So, okay, you guys, why don't we jump in and do something? Let's do something. Let's get into this double stop business. Now I'm going to do that thing where I throw something up on the screen like this and like this. Okay, bear with me. We're going to do some double stops. Double stops, you've heard Chuck Berry playing double stops pretty much in every double stop, and every song you've heard Chuck Berry do. Okay, let's see if your screen goes black for a moment. Hang in there. Don't worry. All right. Menke double stops. We're going to talk a little bit about Tony Menke today, because he's the author of this book right here. Now, I did a little deep dive on Tony Menke. Hopefully you all can see that. Okay, you can see that. Caddis, we'll get to that. Yeah, Howard Levy, we'll get to that in a minute, I promise. Yeah, I'm excited to share that with you guys. Okay, so Menke double stops, why am I giving it that name? It makes it more fun for me to name it after something or somebody. And why not Tony Menke? Because actually I'd forgotten about this as a lesson plan until I saw it in his book. And I thought, oh man, I haven't taught that for I don't know how long. So anybody taking one-on-one lessons with me, this is what you got coming up. I want to show this to everybody because it's such a cool approach. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a minute and just play this, and then we shall talk some more. Are they chords? Not quite. Is it a scale? Not quite. The double stops. Woohoo! Double stops. By the way, when I mentioned Chuck Berry, you've heard Chuck Berry doing double stops when you hear, right? Two strings at the same time. If I did that with only one string, that's not Chuck Berry, right? Two strings, game changer, totally different. Okay, so what do we have here? We have two strings, the B and G strings with two fingers, index and middle. Index B string 3, middle finger third G string 4. Okay, that's that 3-4. Everybody see that on the screen, okay? And the way I'm presenting it to start, you just give that one strum. So two strings only, one strum, two fingers. And those two notes reflect a G chord. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, that's number one. Number two, take your ring finger, flatten it out. 5th fret, you're going to focus on the 2nd and 3rd strings with your pick and with your ring finger. My ring finger can't help but to touch the 1st skinny string. That's fine. But my pressure is on the 2nd and 3rd. So far we have, I'll let them ring a little bit. Next, here comes the 6-7. It's my index and middle again. Just like I use my index and middle on the 3-4 to begin with. 6 and 7, easy peasy. And then back to the 5-5. Again, a little bar. Specifically, you could call that a partial bar with your ring finger. Put it all together slow and steady. 3-4, 5-5, 6-7, 5-5. Notice my eyes are my left hand. I'm trusting my right hand. You got to trust something, right? To save myself stress, worrying about potentially strumming the skinny 1st string, it's very common for me to take one of my bare fingers, like my ring finger, my right hand, and just lightly like grab right under the first skinny string. So even if by mistake I did pluck the skinny string, no sound. It's like a little insurance policy. See my ring finger right there? I know you guys have seen the smaller thumbnail version of me in the screen. Okay, now, if your left hand is getting comfortable with this, we can talk about all the cool stuff that is now at your disposal. What's happening, though, here is, in general, when the world of G, so let's say the band is doing a G chord or a bluesy G sound of, in some fashion, everything here is what you're doing during the G part of the song. What goes with G? C. C goes with G. Move this up 5 frets. Right? Same thing. How about D? Move it up 2 more frets. Now you might be saying, slow down, buddy. How do I know how many frets, what? Don't worry. Because it all starts with getting really comfortable with the first one. If you've truly got it, if you've truly got it, it won't be a big deal to move the entire pattern higher up. Okay, so how do you know where to move it? Believe it or not, that 3-4 that you started off on, neither one of those is the note G. Is there a G in the vicinity? Yes. The skinny E string, 3rd fret, that's the note G. We're just not playing it because we're too cool. You don't have to play the root note of a chord. But that helps me, and I bet it's going to help you, to know where to begin this pattern. We're in the world of G, great. I know there's a G on the skinny 1st string, 3rd fret, and that's how I know where to begin this pattern. Let's say we're in the world of A. The band's doing an A chord. The bass player's playing an A bass line. I know there's an A5 on the skinny string, so I move this pattern over 5 on the 2nd string, 6 on the 3rd string, and I repeat the same pattern. So bottom line is, if you know the names of the notes on your skinny 1st E string, right, that tells you where to locate this pattern to fit whatever chord the band is doing. You good with that? And interestingly, nowhere on none of those notes, the 6, the 5, none of those notes is actually the note G. How cool is that? Right? Anybody can play the root note. That's what the bass player's job is, right? So this whole thing is reflecting this overall sound of this nice, cool, bluesy rock and roll G world without actually playing the note G. Very cool. Okay, at the bottom of the page, I'm sure you've noticed those chord diagrams. This is my sales pitch as to how that 3-4 can be labeled G up above, and how that 6-7 can be labeled G7. So some of you might have already put this together already. Okay, that G diagram at the bottom of the page, it's like an F chord, right? Moved up 2 frets. And prove it to yourself. Don't take my word for it. Grab a nice 4-string F chord, move it up 1 fret. It's now an F sharp chord. Move it up another fret. It's a G chord. Okay, so that 3-4 that Tony Menke is teaching here, that 3-4, those 2 notes are directly from this G major chord, but it's not the whole chord, just 2 notes from it. So we only need 2 fingers. And that 6-7, check it out. It reflects a G7, like golf, G7, because it's related to a D7 shape, D as in Delta, D7, and you glide it up, and the name changes through the musical alphabet, D7, D sharp 7, E7, F7, F sharp 7, G7 at the 6th and 7th frets. But instead of playing the whole chord, we are too cool for that. We just played that 6 and 7 on the 2nd and 3rd strings. And that implied the G7 chord. You with me? You okay with that? This is not hard, but some of you may have never done something like this before, and it's going to feel weird at first. The 5s, by the way, think of those as simply passing notes. They're little like glue that connects the two G things, the 3/4 that reflects a G major, and the 6/7 that reflects a G7. The 5 and 5 are just melodic glue. Now, just to wrap this up, what you do with your pick or bare fingers, however you're doing this, is totally up to you. For a moment, I'm going to repeat this, but I'm going to do individual strings. Sounds great, right? I'm doing a little bit of sliding. So you're totally welcome to go between strumming two strings at the exact same moment, pring, or doing them individually. You can decide how much or how little time to spend on each one of these things. So much room for improvisation / composition, you know. So that's your homework, but take it to the next level by really memorizing the pattern, internalizing it, and having the courage to begin the whole pattern from a new starting spot. It's not any harder. It just is slightly disorienting. That's the word I like to use. It's disorienting to move to a new place. You find out right away if you really got it. And if you don't, that's okay. Back to the original, you know. One of the absolute best things you can do for your brain as a guitar player, if not as a human being in general, is to take any pattern, right, and relocate it and see if you really know the pattern. Gotta be. It's my amateur opinion that it's got to be great for your brain health. It has to be, you know. And that's one reason why we're doing this, right? To keep those brain cells moving along. Okay. So there you go. There you go. All right. Hey, Caddis said, I didn't get what problem Mr. Levy had with the blues scale. Could you clarify it a bit? It couldn't be just the obvious fact that you're allowed to play notes outside of any scale. Well, it kind of is. It kind of is, although he was naming them, but you're on the right track. And let's move to that next. You guys good with this? I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Hang in there. Hold on. And let's move on, man. I'll teach you a lesson you never forget. Okay. Oh, before I do that, though, don't go anywhere. But before I do that, I got to show you this picture. Where are we here? Bear with me. Bear with me. So I told you I was doing a deep dive into Tony Menke, who wrote this book, right? If you remember the story, the quick version of the story, a student of mine found a copy of this book at a used bookstore. I said, I got to get myself a copy. I totally overpaid for this on eBay. But it's the earliest rock and roll instructional book that I personally have come across, 1973. Okay, so I thought, well, who's Tony Menke, who wrote this book? And look at what I found. I think you should be able to see this. Okay, again, don't worry if your screen goes black a little bit, but here's what I found. Tony Menke, a member of the Majestics. There he is in the middle. See that in the picture there? Tony Menke on lead guitar. I'm going to scroll up a little bit on this picture. This picture is courtesy of the Metro St. Louis Live Music Historical Society. Let's get all the Majestics in the picture there. Okay, so there's Tony Menke, the author of this book, up at the top of the page. Tony Menke on lead guitar. It looks like we got Vince Dabbs, the lead singer, Rick Kissel on sax, Don Hector on drums, and Don Bunch on rhythm guitar. Look at these guys, man. They're ready to do it. They're not waiting around. They're not hesitating. They're getting right down to business. The Majestics. Presumably the Majestics performed around the St. Louis area. And your guess is as good as mine exactly when that picture happened, but I'm guessing it was before 1973. And by 1973, Tony Menke was publishing books with the Melbe Publications Company. Okay, I'm going to zip out of that one. And if you like the cover art of that book from Tony Menke, where do you see this one? Bear with me, folks. That one right there. You know, this, thank you for humoring me here, everybody. But check this out. Okay. Look at that. You see that one? Again, if your screen goes black for a minute, don't freak out. Look at that. Melbe's Bass Blues Bag Patterns for Current Rock Styles by Tony Menke. Look at that cover. Can we make that a little bit bigger? That is a glorious thing. I guess that's as big as I can get it at the moment. And there's the back of it. Okay, this is the last thing. Check out, you guys see all those titles on the back of the book? Can you see that right there? I know it might not be as big as you'd like. This is what was going on, man. Now, I don't know the exact timing of the bass book, the exact publication date, but see how, you know, the words like rock and roll and blues aren't showing up a whole lot. Okay, the upper left, blues guitar styles. Okay, there's something. On the right-hand column, see that teenage guitar styles? I would love that book. Santa Claus, if you're listening, teenage guitar styles. What was that? What was that back in the early 70s, you know? This is what Melbe was putting out there. It's all right. It's all good. Okay, you guys, thank you for humoring me there. I'm going to X out of that, and I'm going to X out of this. And Caddis, I'm going to get to your very good question in a moment. Okay, X, get rid of this, Tony Menke. So Tony, wherever you are, man, I'm thinking of you. From one teacher to another, I'm thinking of you. Okay, so now is the time I like to stop and say thank you for being here, you guys. I don't know. It's kind of a fun thing to do on a Saturday, right? Hey, don't forget, every one of these live streams is compiled into a playlist here on my YouTube channel. You can go back and watch any of them. And if you're curious about what is in any of these guitar Q&A live streams, you don't have to watch the whole thing. Just go to the description of that particular live stream, and you can scroll very quickly. Everything's timestamped. You can see what questions people ask, what lessons I taught, all that kind of stuff. All 71 previous ones are all available for you. We've come a long way. I've used different facilities, different lighting, come a long way, man. There you go. Here comes another lesson you'll never forget. And there it is right there. Good. Okay, that's it. And Caddis prompted me. Hey, DAC Poet, thank you for being here. Hey, Val. A to Z Me is here. Okay, Fernando, thank you for being here. Did I say hello already? Okay, now here comes what I'm calling, you guys know I like to name stuff. Okay. How about that? Pretty good. I know you can't see the bottom of it yet. We'll get to that in a second. Howard Levy is a musician I admire quite a bit. I used to meet him now and then when I lived and worked in the Chicago area. He would come into the music shop that I worked at, and it was always interesting to see what he had on his mind. Howard Levy, many of us first heard of him as a member of Bella Fleck and the Flecktones way back when Bella Fleck first started the Flecktones. If you're not familiar with Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, check them out. Your mind will be blown. So I follow Howard Levy on Instagram. I believe his Instagram page is called Howard Levy Land, L-A-N-D, Howard Levy Land. Levy, L-E-V-Y, like it says on the screen. So a couple weeks ago, someone said, what's a blues scale? And so I did the standard, you know, here's what a blues scale sounds like. Here's what it looks like. Here's, you know, the formula. You flat the 5 and so on. And Caddis, you caught me. You said, hey, don't show me flat the 5. That's right. We flat the 7, flat the, okay. And then fast forward a week later, there's a Instagram reel, and Howard Levy is like, just really bugs me when people answer that question the way I answered it. I thought, oh, I'm that guy. I'm that guy. So I thought, okay, let's expand. Let's do what he's talking about. Okay, so everybody. So the Levy Expanded Blues Scale. Why am I calling it that? You guys know it's more fun to call it that than to call it what it really is, or what it also is, which is you take a blues scale, you take a major scale, the do, re, mi thing, and you merge them, right? You merge them, and you end up with this. And I have my little looper set up. You guys know I have a cute little Ditto brand looper, D-I-T-T-O. This should be just fine. It should be queued up and ready to go. We're about to find out. And so I'm gonna demonstrate for you in a minute, but I'm gonna scroll up a little bit because I know you got to see the whole thing. Okay, ready? That's a little bit, it's not ideal. I made it too big. Okay, I can make it smaller. That's right. Oh, look at that. I'm getting there. I'm learning this whole computer thing. How's that? Now I think you can see everything. Okay. You guys see that okay? So everybody, the C blues scale at the top of the page, the C major scale in the middle of the page, and then the merger, the combination at the bottom of the page. I wrote it out, obviously, as both a diagram, a neck diagram, and as tab, because you guys are all different. And some of you prefer one and some of you prefer the other. And I get that. Personally, I love those diagrams on the left because my brain takes a little snapshot of that, and it's great. But some of you might be more numbers people, and maybe the numbers on the right-hand side work better for you, and that's great too. Okay, so my friends, C blues. Oh, why am I doing C? No particular reason. Teachers always seem to gravitate to the key of C. No sharps, no flats, blah, 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 except the blues scale does introduce sharps and flats. Don't overthink it. Okay, C blues scale. For the moment, use whatever fingers you want, although it does make sense to use your index finger on the 5 to start off. Can we all agree that has a nice bluesy flavor? That's your boilerplate standard blues scale starting on the note C. Okay, C major. Okay, that classic do, re, mi sound, right? C major. Howard Levy was saying that those notes in the major scale that do not show up in the blues scale sound great during the blues scale, and it's a shame not to include them. In a nutshell, he's saying it's what you do with these notes that is bluesy or not bluesy. It's not just specific notes by themselves. Okay, that little smiley face, that's not musical notation. That is exactly what it looks like, just a little smiley face. I decided to put a smiley face right there. Notice you're playing practically every note on the 3 treble strings between the 5th and 8th frets. Okay, that's a hodgepodge. That's a lot, right? There's a lot of notes. Okay, so now here's where the rubber meets the road. Let's get the backing track going. I'm just going to mess around for a minute, and I think the most practical thing to do would be for me to improvise for a minute using just the blues scale, and then I'm going to zip down to the 3rd scale, the smiley face, the expanded scale that includes everything. I'm not going to improvise too much with just the middle one, the C major scale, because I don't think that would, well, I could. Yeah, why not? Why not? Okay. First top scale, middle scale, bottom scale. And I'll verbalize it as I do it. Okay, let's see. Let's see how loud this is. Stand by. 12-bar blues in the key of C. It's a C7. going to an F7. Here it comes. C blues scale. Okay, sounds fine, right? Here's the C major. Sounds nice, kind of pretty. Mix them together. All right. Thoughts? A little bit different, right? Thoughts? Now, there's a lot going on there. What I'm hoping is that I made it clear, of course, when I was changing, when I was shifting gears, and that you heard some differences, right? The names, the way you describe those things in your mind are going to be how you describe them, and that's great. You don't have to, like the words that I might use, like saying, oh, the major scale sounded pretty, sounded melodic. That's valid, but you might have come up with some other term, like, oh, when he did that thing, da-da-da. Whatever keeps it straight in your head is all that matters, you know? So I'd be curious, whatever you say in the chat, I'm curious to what was going on in your mind right there. I tried to often play it safe. When I knew the backing track was going to a G chord, I tried to make sure I hit a G note in there to keep things kind of focused, you know. But please let me know in the chat if that was helpful, illuminating, weird, jazzy, mind-blowing, complete nonsense. Because I don't think I've done that exact type of thing before, where you get the backing track going and I demonstrate a few different approaches to improvising on top of that. It's fun for me, but I definitely need your feedback to let me know. You know, and I know we got 36 of you out there. So, you know, that's gonna be 36 different reactions to that. But at a minimum, what I'm 100% hoping and pretty confident about is that you guys can see via the diagrams there, you can see what my choices were, right? And how adding in, you know, merging the scales gave me a lot more choices. And Caddis says it sounded jazzy. Yeah, there you go. If you think about, how jazz grew out of blues. There you go. I mean, literally adding notes, expanding what you can do melodically, harmonically. When I say harmonically, I mean chords, right? Because if the melody is growing by adding more melodic notes, well, then you can have chords that are 5-note chords, 6-note chords that can support that kind of thing, you know? So let me know in the chat what you think about that. We can do more stuff like this. At a minimum, I know I say that a lot, don't I? Simply practicing scales. Don't forget, it makes your fingers faster, especially if you do down-up picking, right? But it also gets your ear tuned in. I mean, you practice any one scale enough, and it's almost like it's this piece of information that becomes very real and tangible and familiar. By the time you get to that third scale at the bottom of the page, you're playing what looks like practically every note. In fact, I didn't play that missing note, that 6 on the 3rd string. But when I was prepping for today's live stream, I thought, well, no, I could work that in. I would use that as a passing note. I would quickly sneak that in between the 5 and the 7. So here's the G string, the 5, 7, 8. And now I'm going to sneak that 6 in there. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. So now that 6 really isn't off limits. Well, then everything is fair game, right? Like, wait a minute. So yeah, then it comes down to like what you do with the tools, right? What you do with these paints on the palettes. You're painting, you know. I'll never forget. This is a slightly different topic, but you might relate to what I'm talking about. You might relate to this scenario I found myself in. I took a handful of jazz guitar lessons from an excellent jazz teacher, and we were talking about chords and the way chords can overlap ingredients from one chord. Notes from one chord show up in notes from another chord, and notes can have notes that appear different might have notes that have 2 different names might actually be the same combination of fingers on the same strings and frets. Okay. He said, Jonathan, when it comes down to it, there's really just one chord. And I thought, oh, I was not ready for that information. Yeah. Oh, you know. Oh, so Carman VW saying that 6 doesn't sound so good. See, that's the thing. Like cilantro, it's not for everybody, right? You know, yeah. And it doesn't have to, none of this stuff. I can say, oh yeah, there's this, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to sound good to you. You have a right to an opinion, you know. We don't all like the same restaurants. We don't like the same food. That's okay. You might want to like something, but you're allergic to it. I like the idea of a roller coaster. I can't even look at roller coaster simulations without feeling queasy. You know, I can't do it. It's not my thing, man. Not my thing. I lost my roller coaster spirit a long time ago. So yeah, so that's how you develop your own style. You like some things a lot, you can't explain why. You do not like other things, and you can't explain why. It just doesn't work for you. That's how you develop your own taste and everything, you know. All right, you guys. So there you go. Hopefully, I'm making Howard Levy proud, and you know, shedding some light. Like I said, I was that guy who's like, oh, blues scale, 1 flat 3. Sorry, yeah, 1 flat 3, 4 flat 5, 5 flat 7. There you go, 6 notes. By the way, hexatonic. Every once in a while, I see a blues scale described as hexatonic, 6 tones. So whenever you feel like sounding like something, just say hexatonic. I can't rake the leaves tomorrow. I got to work on my hexatonic scales. Sounds like blues to me. Here you go. Scott says, how much does sounding good depend on what we expect to hear? Can training make something sound worse? I know that's the case with writing. Interesting. Well, we all have expectations. you know, sometimes if you're lucky, knock on wood, every once in a while, you play something, you surprise yourself that, well, that sounds good. It sounds like real music. Doesn't happen often enough, but I know, I get it. Yeah, but we all have expectations. Can training make something sound worse? I don't think so. I don't think so. I've come a long way as a musician, but when I look back, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, by the way. When I look back to the music I listened to as a younger person, a lot of it I still enjoy. Some of the guitar playing, I feel, and now I see like, oh, that wasn't super fancy guitar playing. It might have been spirited guitar playing. It might have been passionate guitar playing. It might have been tasteful guitar playing, but it's not physically difficult. Now I know that now, but I don't know. Can training make some things worse? Something sound worse? I don't think so. But it helps have a pretty open mind. I mean, you can go back and listen to music that you listened to as a young person and realize, oh my God, those amateurs, that didn't sound very good, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you this, my ear has developed over the years, probably like all of us, and I appreciate things I didn't appreciate as a younger person. I'm more patient with things that maybe I don't understand. I'm more patient with, I give things a chance. I seek out newer sounds. Although I kind of always did that as a kid. I was a weird kid. I was there for the weird stuff. Yeah, Scott says training makes you more sensitive to mistakes. Yeah, now Scott, when you say training though, like as it applies to guitar, training means, like, I'm curious what you mean by training as it applies to practicing and developing as a guitar player. So maybe you can be a little more specific about that. I mean, there's ear training, of course. There's faster fingers. There's broadening your horizons, learning chords that are like jazzier sounding chords. So clarify for us a little bit. I'm curious. Tommy, thank you for being here. Okay, so, but this is a perfect setup for the student quote of the week. Talking about, what happens when you practice stuff. And how about if we do the student quote of the week and then we'll get into our play along song of the week. Okay, student quote of the week. Where are we here? I want to make sure I say it correctly. A lot of my students are adults, my age or older, in that ballpark. I teach a lot of kids. I teach everybody, but a lot of my students are full-grown adults. And one of my, mature students, he said something I thought was so interesting. Sometimes you guys say things, and I think that's it. He said, and this is in regards to benefits of practicing. He said, your reaction time is better when you practice. What a cool way of describing progress on the guitar, your reaction time. I like that. Never thought of that. The song asks you to go to a D chord and your reaction time is better. Might be the first time you ever played that song, but you've played plenty of D chords, right? You see something, your hand starts going, in that direction quickly. So I just liked how he said it, and maybe that might ring a bell. It might remind you of an experience that you've had, or it might illuminate an experience that you're currently having. You might say, "Ooh, that sounds right. My reaction time is better." And so much of progress, I guess, I can think of that as, like personally, I know what to do. I just can't get there fast enough. When I did these jazz guitar lessons, he was encouraging me to improvise using specific scales. But those scales would change every 4 beats as the chords would change. And I got the principle and I could play the scales, but my reaction time was, I had no reaction time. I couldn't do it fast enough. I couldn't process it fast enough at first, right? At first, I couldn't process it fast enough. And it gave me a huge appreciation for people who can process it faster than I could, partly because, mostly because they probably practice it all the time, you know? So yeah, there's the student quote of the week. Okay. Our live streams here keep getting demonetized, not every week, but more often than not.